Hi, welcome back everyone to the next and final event of this year's Creation ModCon. This will be the Beyond Skyrim Walkabout of all of Tamriel for the most part. I've been Argor, the art and writing director on Beyond Skyrim Cyrodiil, writer on Argonia, and help roster out. And I'm here with my good friend Harry. It's been great, hasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely has. Thanks to the viewers for tuning in. It's going to be a fun journey.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. And together, we're going on a journey with you, beloved viewers, across all of Tamriel, through the dense swamps of Argonia, all the way to the frozen shores of Atmora. And to start off, I think...
Let me tell you, Arger, it is a very good thing I know how to walk, because we're going to be doing a lot of that today.
Oh, absolutely. If you're comfortable with it, everybody, make sure you grab a good seat, because we'll be here a minute.
Yeah. To begin our journey, we'd like to welcome our guests, Capkey and Thingy Person, who are avid swimmers of swamps and drinkers of his sap. They are here to be our guides through this treacherous environment. So let's grab our boots and stay close, because it's going to be a slimy ride. You two can take it away.
You're welcome.
All right. So I'm Thingy, and this here is Capkey.
Hello there.
And on behalf of the Argonia team, we'll be talking about some of what you'll be seeing on this route. So here's a nice overview of a region near the northwest of the province. So we actually have a lot of progress in 3D art and level design. So there's actually a lot of landscaping that we could have showed off. But sadly, we can only do some of it today for time constraints. So yeah, and Argonia as a province is kind of hard to navigate, so I'm sure you'll be seeing the map a lot in this part of the stream.
One thing I also want to remind the chat of is that if you guys have questions for our Argonia team or any of our teams today, please feel free to post them in chat with the header question.
I'm so excited to see this. It's incredible, just the amount of progress that's been made, and just watching it, live on screen just makes me so excited.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like the newest project, right?
It is. Relatively. It is insane. I believe, yes, it is younger. It's the youngest of all of the projects that are officially part of Beyond Skyrim. And just the amount of progress we've made in that time, especially within these past 3 or so months, has just been phenomenal. Like, it's kind of mind-boggling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I believe this is the Valus Mountains biome. So the Valus Mountains are the mountain range separating Cyrodiil from Argonia. And typical is that these trees, the Douglas firs, and there's also a lot of them dotting the Cyrodiil side of the border. And what you see here straight away is some Aelid ruins, because they were here as well in Argonia.
Yes, the Barsabic Aelids were a kind of cultural subgroup of Aelids who were pushed out of Cyrodiil by the more Daedrophile Heartlander Aelids, and they came into Black Marsh and settled much of the northern area of the province.
And this region here is called Oncobra, also known as the Valley of Storms, and it is dotted with these kinds of mesas. And that there are the walls of the city of Stormhold. And as you can see, it is a very defendable city, very hard to get in. You'll need to go up there via a pulley system. And these mesas, these mesas can be called Arnesian Mesas, because this is also, under some terminology, is part of the Arnesia region. Which the Imperials call the northern area that borders Morrowind, basically, and it is also what the Arnesian War was named after, where the Argonians and the Dunmer duked it out.
So I actually have a couple questions from the chat I want to pose to you guys. So there's a couple I think Thingy will answer, and from Capkey. And there's one question is, will there be a poison mechanic for Argonia? Or along those veins, will it be hard for non-Imperials to survive in the Inner Marsh?
Non-Argonians.
For non-Argonians, correct.
Yeah, so we're a little far out from actually really hashing out a lot of that gameplay stuff, but and like the inner marshes in particular there's some very very dank brainstorming going on about that, but I can't really say much about that for sure yet, but I think they'll definitely, that kind of stuff is definitely what we're looking into. Yeah,
we do have concepts for a suit that would be worn by non-Argonians to enter into the inner marsh area, but that was also as a kind of an older concept. I think there's a lot of interesting, like Thingy said, there's a lot of really interesting ideas going on there. It certainly won't be pleasant for non-Argonians, but as for if it will be immensely lethal, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, I've seen that concept art too for the Inner Marsh.
Yeah, I love it. It's like a little
absolutely
hazmat
fantastic.
suit.
Yeah. Let's see. So another question, I think. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one. What kind of help do you need for Argonia? Do you mainly need 2D artists, or what are you thinking?
I think almost all the departments are open, not voice actors, and I think we're for now good on implementers, but I think we really want writers. We could use more 3D artists and indeed, yeah, more concept artists, because there's still a lot of 2D that needs doing, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely on the money. It's like, we need 2D artists to fill out a lot of, just everything, honestly. You see, like, right here, like, all these different, like, pots and plants and everything. Like, so much goes into the art aspect. And then, of course, for writers, we need, a lot of people who can help with dialogue, who can help with, just about everything.
Yeah. So, especially in the stage they're in now, I think a lot of this relates to another question from the chat, is do you guys make any of the smaller towns yourselves, or are they all from lore?
So we definitely do look towards existing lore to try to like get locations, their names, and vaguely, just like where they are positioned within Black Marsh. It is difficult because Black Marsh is certainly, when it comes to the provinces, one of the least explored. So you kind of have to do a little bit of digging. So some of these are definitely, oh, this place actually exists, in game text. And then others are, all right, here's kind of like, it would make sense for there to be a village here. So I'd say it's a healthy mix.
Look at these ruins.
Oh, yeah. These are, right now what we're passing through is an Orma ruin, and it's kind of using we have a tile set for the different Nedic human tribes of Black Marsh, and so I'm super excited to get to show those off. People really seem to almost forget that Black Marsh has a huge racial diversity in its actual its population makeup until the mid to late Second Era, where everyone who wasn't an Argonian died.
From the chat, things like the Cathringi I can't even say the word right now. Cathringi? Yeah, Cathringi ruins. How much of that is based off of ESO lore and design? Or how much is original?
I'm not too familiar with ESO's take on the Cathringi. I've seen, images of things. I don't know particularly their architecture. So that I can't particularly comment on. But I know, as with most things, we tend to look at ESO as a source of inspiration, but we don't definitively take everything from it as law. So, we do read through like item descriptions, we read through character descriptions, we read through locations from ESO, and we'll kind of pick and choose what we think fits really well with us, because we do that with a lot of other things as well. And so, yeah, there will be elements from ESO incorporated in, but you're also going to see, stuff from previous lore, and you're going to see stuff that we're, extrapolating based on all this and making our own.
I love the density of like all the foliage and stuff. Like you can't even see these little mud huts that he came up on.
Oh yeah, and these are these are like the famous Knahaten mud huts. So that's another subculture among the Argonians. The Knahaten are like the northern Argonian people, and these mud huts are basically a kind of architecture that is specific to them.
So speaking of different cultures and races, there was a question in chat saying, what kind of different species of, I think it was species of Argonians, will there be represented in Black Marsh?
So I hope that you're familiar with the Argonian account because it's a very important piece of lore for this province. But if you've read the Argonian account, then we'll have, of course, the Argonians that you encounter, all throughout Tamriel, which we have a name for them. I forget what it is. Unfortunately, I'm very bad with pronunciation. But then we also have the Agasef, the Sarpa, the Patru, and the Naga, which are all featured in the Argonian account, and they will also be featured in Argonia.
And they have some strange physiologies as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so to kind of briefly go over, the Patru are described as being kind of frog or toad-like. The Naga, they kind of get described almost as puff adders. They're also said to be very tall and aggressive. The Sarpa are more avian in appearance, having feathers. And the, who didn't I mention? The Agasef. The Agasef have kind of more like pointed needle nose faces. And so they'll definitely be very distinct from the other Argonians you see throughout Tamriel, and it'll really lend a lot to the flavor of this province.
Yeah, I've seen those concepts. I'm super excited to see those get in game. Absolutely.
I remember first time reading the Argonian account, I thought the Naga race were super interesting in just like how they were portrayed. Really, like, that was the thing that stuck out to me most after I finished reading. I was like, I want to go back and read that section. It was like so dark and cool.
Yeah, definitely the Naga are not fans of outsiders, and even then they kind of have some trouble getting along with their neighboring Argonians as well. It'll be a really interesting dynamic to see how kind of all these different tribes and sub-races interact with each other.
So the region we're in right now is called the Stone Forest. It also has a name in the Argonians' native Gel language, which I won't even try to pronounce. But yeah, so this is a very striking visual scene right here, and extremely difficult to navigate around.
That's really what I love about this section of the walkabout. Is there's almost at this point there's no clear path for like where you're supposed to go, and it really gets this sense that Argonia is in a lot of places very untamed. It's very wild. It's very pristine. And I just kind of like that. I've tried doing the walkabout path on my own on a few times, and I've always ended up getting lost. But I think in the end, that's kind of the intent, and it really works well for this, because, that's how it should be.
Yeah, almost like the lack of infrastructure is going to kind of encourage players to forge their own path, it seems
Absolutely.
like, which is really cool.
Like here and there, you'll see some kind of pathetic remains of imperial infrastructure from when this was part of the empire, but not really quite enough to just blindly navigate from one place to the other, although it gets better the more west you are in the province.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of non-Argonians and Imperials, a question was how have things like the Oblivion Crisis and the Dunmer conflict and things like that, and how are non-Imperial races being represented, and how have they affected the province?
So non-Argonians definitely will be represented. The place you're definitely going to see them the most is towards, the west coast around the Gideon Soul Rest area, where the influence of the Empire, because of its close proximity to Leowyn and the Blackwoods, hasn't really fully died. But it's definitely, compared to what it was on the decline, the Empire no longer officially holds any territory within Argonia. The province of Blackmarsh has, for all intents and purposes, collapsed. But you'll still see that there will be non-Argonians around. They'll mostly be located on the coast and in major cities where it's kind of safer for them. And the relationships that they have with the Argonian people will vary depending on what tribe or what confederation you're talking about, because some may be very friendly and, willing to trade, like the Archeans. They are very imperialized. They love to interact with the Empire. Whereas if you go, more to the south in the territory that is specifically the coalition that the Anzilil is part of, there's going to be, while not outwardly violent and malevolent, they're definitely mistrustful and reclusive when it comes to interaction with outsiders.
So here we are seeing the first signs of the region known as Tiny Call, the bamboo forest, where eventually the city of Hellstrom will be located.
I'm very excited for Hellstrom. That one's going to be very interesting to work on.
A couple more questions would be, there was one. Just posted it. How is the work on Beyond Skyrim Argonia different from work on other regions, considering how just vastly different Argonian culture is compared to others? If you got an answer for that.
I mean, it's hard to say. I am not privy to how all different projects work. I think what definitely is different is when it comes to talking about these subcultures and how we go about just Argonian culture as a very broad whole, there's definitely a lot of discussion that goes into it. There's a lot of brainstorming. There's a lot of, like pulling different references and just talking about things in general, because we want a very unique, diverse culture that isn't really something. It's going to be a culture you're not going to see anything similar to anywhere else in Tamriel. So it just takes a lot of work of figuring out how we get to that point and what necessarily, goes into making this culture so dissimilar and alien from everything else. I'm sure that every other project does a ton of work on their own culture. I think it's just everyone kind of has different goals with it.
Absolutely. Along that vein, I guess first off, we gotta address a concept that a lot of people are asking about. I think it's still fairly in an earlier stage, and that's the hist. Any thoughts on our current designs or plans or anything like that?
So, at least going from a writing perspective, the thing is that a lot of people tend to think of the Argonians as a hive mind, where, they are under the direct control of the hist, and kind of, they're almost like meat puppets. It'll be a lot, and it is very much implied to be a lot more than that, and that's definitely the route we're going to be taking. There will be instances where we're going to show there is more direct control and more like influence of the hist, but in other places it will be a lot more subtle, acting almost kind of like a compelling force or almost something similar to instinct, but not necessarily a controlling force. And also you have to look at other things like the Archeans, who are very imperialized, and how their view of the hist has been warped by interactions with the Imperials. So hist stuff is all very early in development, I'd say, but it'll be something to look forward to, and I'll say that it's going to be a very interesting thing to work on, because it's not going to be very uniform, as most things in this province are.
So it looks like we entered a cave too. Thingy?
Yeah, and what Kapki said about the hist not being hive mind and meat puppets, well, here in this cave, we see some of our flesh fly zombies. So this was actually foreshadowed in Wares of Tamriel, actually, but in Argonia there is a species of insect called flesh flies, and they have this method of infecting their hosts and taking control of their brain, resulting in the creatures that you see here with enough time.
And what's absolutely terrifying about these, they're so gross, they're so ugly, they're so creepy, and I love them. I love how they've
absolutely.
got these, we definitely took a lot of inspiration from like paper wasps and other stuff, and you can see how like they malformed like these big clubbed arms, or like kind of almost forming armor on them. They're so nasty, I just love them.
Definitely a unique take on zombies. for the Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, no, and I mean, these are of course still very much a work in progress, but there's a lot of cool stuff we're still planning for them, and you'll see they're gonna be a very fun enemy for you guys to fight.
Oh, here's a question: are fleshfly victims still conscious after losing control, or are they dead? Basically,
that is an interesting question, because if you listen closely, you may hear some gel phrases being spoken by these zombies. So they are, is the person under there alive? Maybe, but they're not all there. So you may hear, muttering of certain words, or they may kind of like scream for help, but they're kind of gone at that point. Oh man, I hate this section, but I love it.
Looks like, I think one question is, can the player be infected by these flesh flies? I think that's a good thingy question. Probably not, maybe?
I don't know. I don't know if we've discussed that, actually. It sounds like a neat idea.
There's been some very passing conversation about it, but never really anything past the idea of, hey, that would be kind of cool. But you also have to consider, like, what the mechanics behind that would be, because you can't have, like, a giant... Ooh, yeah, I love the giant snake there. But you can't just have, like, a giant club form over your hand and deprive you from using the weapons or shields you want to use. So, I mean, it's being considered, but the reality of it is unclear at the moment.
There you go. If that's one interesting thing to point out, is that bringing the mechanics of Skyrim to Argonia, things like shouting, like that, like just happened. Just seeing how those interplay with each other.
Mm-hmm. I really do love the voice that Cyrena gave these is just fantastic. It's gross. It sounds like some disgusting, decomposing zombie. She just did a fantastic job with that.
Yeah, it definitely portrays exactly like the question of whether or not they're still conscious. I like that. And let's see.
Where crocodiles?
Oh, look.
Questions.
Yeah, so this is more Argonian architecture, but this is something you'll see with all the Argonian sub-populations across the province. There may be even some turning up in Cyrodiil too.
Well, here's one question is the sound design within Argonia final? No, definitely not. Or further attempts will be made on things like these swamp creatures or the fleshfly guys, or...
Oh, absolutely, it's not final. That's sound design and all that work is still being done. Of course, it's very early stages, and we need to get the models and a lot of other stuff finished before we go on to sound design. But by no means is it finalized.
So it looks like a couple people had a question about how the Oblivion Crisis will be portrayed in Argonia, or if we've mentioned that yet or anything like that.
So for the Oblivion Crisis, you do have to notice that there's definitely the very pervasive story about the Anzalil and how they managed to counteract and lead counterattacks into Oblivion itself, and to actually push the forces of Mehrunes Dagon totally out of the province. We haven't discussed it a lot. There is we do want to show that there's a lot more to that story than is just being told. But when it comes to it on just the broadest scale, Argonia definitely was one of the lesser impacted places from the Oblivion Crisis. Dagon probably is a lot smarter than we give him credit for, and probably focused on areas like Cyrodiil or Morrowind that were heavily populated. Whereas Argonia doesn't have a ton of infrastructure, doesn't have a ton of stuff that can potentially hamper his plans. So a ton of focus, I think, would be shifted elsewhere, whereas Argonia certainly gets attacked, but not nearly as bad as, the Heartlands.
By the way, I think we've gone some way through Blackwood already. So Blackwood is the another border region between Argonia and Cyrodiil. And it looks a lot like this on the other side of the border as well. So that means we're getting somewhat close to the crossing.
I absolutely love the Blackwood section. It's been such a pleasure to just like wander around and explore it. It's so dense. It's so dark and mysterious, and it just looks amazing.
Yeah, it's actually something we share a little bit of on Cyrodiil as well. So it's a nice little tie-in there. You'll see if you ever get the chance to walk between Cyrodiil and Argonia, then you'll see a nice smooth transition between both.
Yeah.
The land sync was pretty recently too, wasn't it?
Yeah, so this is a unfortunate consequence of having to cut up Tamriel height map into all these world spaces, is that every now and then you actually have to sync them up so that when you look across the border, you actually see the land on the other side, like the way it has been created by that project. So we have this whole slew of scripts and tools to just take portions of one world and just copy it into another world. And yes, that is quite a painful process, but we just did it very recently, taking part of Argonia into Cyrodiil. So then the Cyrodiil side of Blackwood can be created with all this in mind, so that it flows from it naturally, rather than some abrupt cutoff.
I've noticed some questions going on about the Hist. Basically, what its role is going to be in, or how much of an impact it's going to have on the gameplay and character building, decision making, stuff like that.
Well, of course, the main quest hasn't been really touched on yet, because right now we're focusing on just a myriad of other things. The Hist there will certainly be chances to interact with the Hist in some capacity. How, I can't quite tell you, unfortunately. But they'll be around. They will certainly be playing a part in the lives of Argonians and in the greater scheme of things in Argonia. But how you'll be interacting with them, I'm afraid I can't tell you just yet.
Another good question I saw, this vaguely... Oh, actually, you might want to talk about what we're walking up on right now.
Yeah.
We are getting very close to Gideon. Gideon, or the county with heavy air quotes, Gideon, is kind of the holdout of definitive imperial power and presence within Argonia. Of course, it's seen better days, and that'll be something that certainly will be explored in Gideon, and kind of like these themes of, the collapse of the empire and its authority within the former province of Blackmarsh.
And speaking of the leadership of Argonia, can you describe a little bit of how the current leadership is divided amongst the province?
So, Argonia is by no means at all a unified province. It is very much divided amongst a variety of different coalitions, confederations, and just tribal groups who have, allied and banded themselves together, as well as, you have Gideon, you have Soul Rest, you have Thorn, these other locations which are kind of removing themselves from that, the different confederations are standing out as their own kind of city-states or little counties. So you'll definitely see that it's largely a kind of different combination of different federations and coalitions all vying for their own regional control. There's no overarching power that's dominating Argonia.
So now we've temporarily left Blackwood and we're now in the more Topal Bay style biome.
I'm not super, but this is kind of just a personal curiosity.
Yes.
the Iliad, did they ever have any sort of history in Black Marsh?
Yeah, the aliens actually have a very extensive history in Black Marsh.
Yeah.
Most people tend to forget they lived in Black Marsh during the Riemann Empire into the Second Era.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, can we cut here to discuss the transition? We're transitioning to Cyrodiil right now. The Cyrodiil border. Thingy, do you want to discuss that before we say goodbye to the Argonia team?
Yeah, so what you saw just there was our world-famous, freshly implemented cross-province travel system, where you can go from one province to the other in-game with no compatibility patch. So ordinarily, that's not possible. You can't link up content from 2 mods without there being a patch, but we have some intricate system that goes through BS assets that makes it possible. And the thing you just saw is the system for player travel, but there's also a system that allows NPCs to just use their normal pathing and AI to go from one place to the other. Just seamless.
All right, Harry.
Well, yeah, that was, I feel like, a proper Argonian account. I guess we can all just be glad that we kind of survived. So thanks to Capkey and Thingy Person for helping us brave that perilous adventure.
Absolutely, and if you have any more questions, feel free to come over to the Beyond Skyrim Community Outpost and ask away. There's tons of people on Argonia who are going to be willing to answer almost anything you ask us.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys so much. It looks really great.
Thanks. And as we leave the moist air of Argonia, we'd like to welcome in our Cyrodiil friends. Can you introduce yourselves?
Hi,
Bellatrix.
I'm sorry, I'll go first. I'm Ria. I was on the writing panel earlier. I'm the writing director, one of the writing directors for Cyrodiil. Yeah.
Shall I go next? I can't see who else is in the channel. So I'm Bellatrix. I am the Beyond Skyrim co-lead, and I also work on Dungeons and Interiors.
I believe we have one more.
If he's with us currently. No worries, if not, you two can take it away. Why don't you explain to the viewers what they're in store for?
We're gonna be in Cyrodiil twice. This is gonna be a bit of a we might go silent for a while and then have to come back, because at the moment we're in the very south of Cyrodiil. We're in the Blackwood region, which shares some basically shares a biome across the border with Blackwood, with Argonia. So this is the far south of Cyrodiil, very jungly, very much like very similar to the climate of Black Marsh to Argonia in many ways. But then we're going to be cutting from this area across elsewhere, and the elsewhere team will be coming on, and then we'll be heading into the Westweald and the Gold Coast to finish off Cyrodiil.
Did he just whirlwind sprint out of the tent?
Nice.
I think so.
Had to break the sound barrier.
Yeah, that's actually a good thing that to point out, is that because of the fact that we still have shouts and things like that in game, we level designers do have to kind of account for that, like in things like the fort exterior you just saw, and you'll find little things like that hidden throughout, I think.
So we're obviously going to be talking a bit about everything that you can see in front of you. But as with Argonia, if you have any questions, please keep providing them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them. Questions specifically about Cyrodiil are great, but also questions about the whole project, if you have any, we can try and answer them. At least until we give way to the rest of the teams.
There's one we probably should answer, because I've seen it a couple of times already. So, will Cyrodiil and Beyond Skyrim basically just be a remake of Oblivion Skyrim? Do you want to take that one, Ree?
No. That's Oblivion. We are recreating the whole of Tamriel, piece by piece, or at least we're recreating Cyrodiil in the 4th era at the time of Skyrim's story. So
And no
it's
better place
entirely
to
new content. Entirely new
exemplify that. Sorry, no better place to exemplify that than Lys Leywin we're walking into right now. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, Leywin is one of my favorite cities. Writing on it is going really well. It's in the middle of development right now, but the landscaping has come along incredibly well. It is one of my favorite cities, if not my favorite. And I don't like to hate on Oblivion because it's my favorite Elder Scrolls game, but the Leywin from Oblivion was just a flat city in the middle of a river, and I think we've done a little bit better, but the viewers can decide if they agree with me or not.
They obviously had some big plans, because the kind of 3-island design. That's like that's like from the original concept, right, of Leywin from the Bethesda developers, or?
Yeah, from the original Bethesda concept art did have it split across both bays to allow for the ships to pass.
Right. Yeah.
I believe they shrunk it for development or implementation purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have a question here. Besides Kavach, what city has changed the most in the last 2 centuries by Reedstill?
I think that one really depends on whether you're answering in terms of story and themes or in terms of level design, because we've remade a couple of the cities with level design. We could say easily like Leywin's changed dramatically, but if you're asking about in terms of the story and the themes, that could be a different question.
Yeah, I think they've all changed a bit, haven't they? So if you played Bruma, so obviously if you played Bruma in Oblivion, a lot of the sort of the major stone houses are still there, and the layout seems quite familiar. But obviously the Great War happened, there's and the Oblivion crisis, and there's been a lot of poverty, and then so there are now slums outside Bruma. So I think a lot of the cities will feel familiar if you've played Oblivion. Obviously, Kavach has been remade, but hopefully they also feel different, and they do feel like time's passed and things have changed slightly. Different buildings, so the inn or the main shop might have moved locations, and things like that.
Another good question I saw was, it's kind of 2 different questions actually. Will the Aliads play a significant role, and will Morahouse or any of those play significant roles in Cyrodiil's storylines?
The Iliads, yes. If you haven't seen our newest trailer for Beyond Skyrim Cyrodiil, you should definitely go and watch it. There are some hints in there for the story that will happen. Morahouse, less so, but we definitely want to not forget that he exists, and there will be I think there is a plan for a priory dedicated to him, and there will be allusions to him and talk of him. He's not going to sort of disappear, and we're not going to pretend he doesn't exist. Play a major role in the story? Probably not.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And another question. Besides Bruma, are there any cities that are done or almost complete? This is kind of an up-in-the-air one, I think, to some degree.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
They're not complete in terms of Bruma's the only pre-release we're doing, but we have a few cities now that are sort of built to the extent that level design's done, the interior design's done, most of the implementation's done. But obviously they're at different levels of polish, but we're not intending to release anything before we do the sort of the full Cyrodiil release, because it's actually quite a lot of work sort of making a standalone mod. So yeah, I can't remember how many we're up to now. I guess it depends how you count them, but getting 2.5, 3-ish.
Yeah, it really is hard. It's such a hard thing to put a number on. But yes, there are quite a few cities that are going really well right now. This is another also great example of a town that's changed a lot in 200 years. I think, I know Argo's not here representing Cyrodiil right now, but one of the pieces of work that he did on Cyrodiil was for this town, writing the inhabitants of this town. This is Water's Edge, and it looks incredible. It looks so much more interesting and better than it did in Oblivion. It's so much bigger and more lively. And yeah, this is one of the main places that's changed a hell of a lot since Oblivion.
Within the walls will keep you safe.
That was quite fun to write too, especially the College of Whispers Synosia, which is the new building right there, which
you can see right in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's from the E3 2019 trailer. If anyone saw it.
and a relic now.
The same shot.
So I kind of dipped out there for a second, but how do you how do we manage to make the mod stand out from the original Oblivion through different locations and the like?
Shall I do this one?
Yeah.
Oh dear. So how do we manage to make the mod stand out? Well, hopefully when you play it, you'll agree with this, but it's kind of, it shouldn't feel like Oblivion, so it's not retelling the same stories that were told in Oblivion. There's obviously quite a lot of times past, so you will see families that you recognise. If you play Bruma and been to places like Cloudrill, the Temple, there'll be locations, or even Frostcrag Spire actually. So there'll be locations that you recognise, but their usage and the stories that are told in them will have changed. So hopefully it will feel familiar, but you'll also be doing an awful lot of different content.
Yeah, and fundamentally it's a different story from Oblivion, and a lot's changed in the time that's passed since you played Oblivion, both in real life and in the game. So I think it should feel pretty fresh for a lot of people.
Here's one I think Bellatrix will like. Will you be able to buy houses in every city?
Heck yes. One of my favourite things. But we were having a chat a couple of days ago about, I think, nothing's written in stone yet, but you'll be able to buy a couple of houses in the Imperial City, probably. So one thing we really like doing, I think there's quite a few role players on the modding team, but we like to give players different options. So if you want to play as a sort of a grungy thief who doesn't really have a lot of money, you can do that. If you want to role play sort of being an incredibly rich landowner, hopefully you can do that too. It's why we have a couple of different tavern options in all the towns as well, so you can go and stay at the Absolute Dive, or you can splash the cash and stay in a slightly nicer surroundings.
Yeah, we're back now. The stream's back on.
Hello. Sorry, I was having a few mic problems just before, but I'm Roast Gorilla and I'm the Dungeons and Interiors Director for Cyrodiil.
Welcome.
Welcome, Rose.
Good to have you finally.
Good to have you.
Yeah,
Glad you
we're
got your
just
mic.
about to hit elsewhere, but
Yeah, I think my cat just rubbed it, like...
Don't
your
worry, we
cat.
have the
Oh,
other
I
half
see.
of Cyrodiil. Cyrodiil's Walkabout time.
before we do head into elsewhere, we are gonna stop off in the town of Borderwatch, which I sound like a bit like a broken record, but is another one of those towns that has undergone a really incredible redesign since Oblivion, and the writing for this one I think is really good as well. It's this wonderful fusion of Khajiiti and Cyrodiilic culture, so it's perfect for a town on the edge of the two provinces.
And here we are in Border Watch. We are approaching the Dominion territory border, which now, if my Cyrodiil friends want to just actually stay in the stream, we'll have a focus on the upcoming Elsewhere speakers, who will be Rob and will Scioli be here? Let's see.
I believe he will be, yes.
All right. Well, welcome, Rob. And there he
Thank
is.
you very much.
Welcome.
Here we go. Oh, so hello and welcome to Elsewhere, everyone. I'm Rob C.B. Wilson. I am the lead for Elsewhere. We also have Scioli, who will be talking later when we get to something else that's currently undisclosed. So this area here is a blend region, the Samersill Steppes to the north, the Badlands to the west, and the jungles to the left, or the south. As you can see, hopefully you'll notice, these rocks are new for Elsewhere, with much improved meshes and fantastically improved textures, thanks to Hayden Matthey, who seems to do everything for everyone, and also Chewak, who did the cliff faces, which you've just gone past.
One thing people have pointed out is that the landscape change between Cyrodiil and Elsewhere is a bit sudden. That's being worked on. Am I correct?
Yes, this is indeed a work in progress area. Yes. Mr. JGT, if you could just go a smidge to the north, that would be cool, if you can hear me. Yep. Cool.
And then people are just
north,
enjoying
north.
the Elsewhere
way.
soundtrack, I can see as well.
Okay, you're delayed, aren't you? Yeah. I'm delayed, rather. So here we see our first point of interest, which is a religious point of interest. We've got the Shrine of Lorcage, some prayer poles, and some other smaller objects that you won't see because they've gone past. And we're speeding across the dry grasslands. That was a temple that was in the last walkabout for anyone that was here for that, but that set has been deprecated, so it's no longer being shown.
I do have a couple community questions. Will there be a main in Elsewhere, and will we be able to meet them? The first one?
That would be a massive spoiler, so I can't say.
Understandable.
Yes.
The second one of that would be, will Beyond Skyrim provide new lore and goals for the Thalmor?
In Elsewhere, yes, the Thalmor will be involved in Elsewhere, obviously, because we're a Dominion vassal. But before anyone asks, you can't kill them all.
Classic question.
Yes. First of all, it wouldn't make any sense, and second of all, they just ship new ones from Eleanor, so you'd be killing an endless tide.
Here's an apt one as well. Real quick, what skills does Elsewhere need right now?
So we need architecture concept artists, creature artists, both 2D and 3D, and implementers, as well as just 3D in general, of course, same as all the other provinces.
Nice.
Okay, so we're speeding across. This is another blend area. This is a blend between the dry grasslands, which we've just gone through, and the badlands, which is the sands of Elsewhere that everyone associates with our province. And
I have a personal question.
A personal question? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Personal curiosity. How do you describe like the combat that might take place in like these kind of environments? It's Elsewhere seems so like unique in terms of like, you know, the amount of open space you have to work with, and the lack of obstruction between, you know, like people and stuff like that. Do you feel like it's gonna be you know, I don't know how I'm trying to say this.
Well, there might be one question from the chat that's similar, dealing with the flatness of the land. Will you guys be adding verticality? I think you mentioned something about
yes.
Some inspiration from this. So
very much so. Verticality is incredibly important to Elsewhere. Obviously, it doesn't make a great deal of sense here, but in the canyons, which you can see in the background there coming up, they will have an awful lot of verticality. Yes, very much so. Because obviously, with an open aesthetic like this, we don't want it to be just empty landscape and boring. So, as I said yesterday, with the ESO thing, we are going to be adding cracks, crevices, and small canyons. So that will allow us to go down a little bit. So it's an entrance. I wonder what's in here. Bit of pantomime there.
It looks like that's time for
nice cave entrance, by the way.
It is your time for you, Cioli.
Your time to shine.
Thank you for joining in on these wonderful events. What you're looking at now is... gotta be a bit louder? Sure thing. Give me a second. I thought I was loud enough. Well, I can turn it up. There you go. How's that? Is that a bit better?
It's better. Yeah.
Good. What you're looking at now is our first, I guess, proof of concept of the caves for Elsewhere. We have several dungeon types, and the caves will be one of the generic ones. Usually inhabited by creatures, monsters, or like bandits. This is a new cave tile set that we have for Elsewhere. We've retextured it. We got the meshes from Iliac Bay, and the textures you're looking at now for the cave are still work in progress. There's some nice clutter with weapons and food dishes and a bunch of other things that make Elsewhere come to life. This cave is basically an idea, a proof of concept of what it will feel like. So currently, in pretty much everything we're doing for Elsewhere, we're focusing on, you know, making things work, obviously, and getting forward, but also on what do we want things to feel like. And this is the first time we get to actually test our cave tile set and actually, you know, get a feel for what it's going to be like. So it's quite exciting for us to see this in game, and also to hear it in game, because if you paid attention, you might have heard some new music here. All the music, including the current dungeon music that you're hearing in the Elsewhere segment, is new. is for the first time actually audible in game, fully implemented. So it's also a huge step forward.
And awesome.
And apparently also awesome. I don't want to say it myself.
Well, I thought I'd say it for you because you can't say it because you wrote it. That would be a bit,
yeah, exactly.
That would be a bit much, wouldn't it? But yes, the music is very, very good.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's also new, and the rest of what you're seeing now is just different shapes in hallways and verticality in the cave. So this is a very vertical section here, and then we're moving through to a more straight tunnel approach. So some of the clutter you're seeing here, I think right now we're about to walk past a little bit of a candle. There it is. I'm a bit delayed, but some of our favorite clutter assets are these little animal candles. They fit the Khajiit culture very well, and they're also just very nice to look at. Now we're moving on to something different. Welcome to the exterior. This cave set is also able to be used on the exterior, and this is a highlight of that verticality we keep talking about that we really, really want to highlight. So this section here is designed to showcase what it will feel like to walk through really tight canyons when you're being ambushed by things left, right, and center. So we feel that the verticality it makes things just a bit more tense, I guess. There's not really much of a way out, so it feels you're committing to this journey. And as you're about to see, we are definitely about to commit in something, because we have a little section up ahead. There it is.
Yeah, this goes perfectly along with that question about verticality from earlier and how it affects combat.
Exactly so. Yeah.
Exactly. So here's the combat. So
what we're going to do is through the use of archers and other structures, the player will be able to go up one or maybe two different levels to the top of the rocks. There will be stuff there to explore. There will be people to fight. The intention with the finished mod is that NPCs will attack you from above, and you'll have to figure out how to get up there and to take them on. So.
Yeah, we've already got that figured out a little bit, just not in this demonstration because the main highlights the current canyon section looking at here, which has little bridges built by the bandits. But yeah, this combat section is just a demonstration of a bunch of things actually, of level design, how we like to do verticality in even combat sections like this with the bridge, and also the music, because the combat music is also new and has never been heard in game before.
With the dust in the air, it brings up a couple questions that have been asked about. Will there be any sort of dehydration or mirage mechanic or dust storm mechanic or anything like that you guys are planning?
We're not really adding those survival mechanics as far as I know. We have sandstorms, obviously, but I'm afraid I must now stop speaking about the cave because something is about to happen. So, Rob, back over to you.
Yes, I'm not going to say anything just now either.
Let's just watch and wait.
Those dust storms look really good.
They really do, though.
They really add a lot to the combat too. It's like they're on the cusp of your vision.
Okay, so hopefully everyone can see this. Welcome to Riverhold. So this is a world exclusive. This is the Imperial and Khajiit city of Riverhold, with the two cultures blending together. Now we should point out that the textures are very much work in progress. The final versions will be significantly more decorated with murals and other decorative elements, particularly the houses with the big flat sides. Those will be painted with murals, etc. That's the reason why they're like that. So there'll be much more to come, but that was just a quick sneak peek of what we've been working on for the past year in terms of Riverhold.
Yeah, it's been a long road for Riverhold. We've made
it certainly has
pretty good progress, and there's going to be a lot more on that down the line. So exciting times for us.
Yeah. I'd also point out that there were 3 buildings missing. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but there are 3 buildings missing that are unique and huge, and they will be showing off when they're finished, because we felt that showing them off in their half finished state would reduce their final impact. So once we've got them fully textured up, then we'll show them off in a future walkabout. So we're
to clear up a point from the chat, I think the large towers were grain silos, correct?
They are indeed grain silos, yes. Those will also be highly decorated on the sides. They will have the emblem of the company that owns them and some other general art as well. So think of any spaces that you saw that were just plain colours, think of those as canvases. That's how we've been approaching Riverhold. They will be painted as such. So, like the cantons in Iliac. In fact, we're going to be speaking to the Skyward team after their demonstration this morning, just to understand exactly how they made those look so nice. So we'll be hopefully borrowing some knowledge from them as well.
Awesome. I love collaboration.
Yeah, which is what this is all about. Yeah.
We love to see it.
Yeah, it makes the world go round, doesn't it? So yes, we're almost finished with Elsewhere. I think we've just got a few more seconds to go. If there are any more questions, now's a great time to ask them.
All right. Well, let's see what we got here. What will be the Khajiit's interpretation of the godly creatures like Aedra and Daedra? Yeah.
That is a question I wouldn't even begin to answer because I'm not very good with the law. So sorry about that. You picked the one question I couldn't answer.
Contain a bit of spoilers in that one actually, because it's definitely involved.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Different pantheon is the short answer. I'm pretty sure.
Pretty much.
Quite possibly, yeah.
As far as I know.
I believe there's some really good Fudge Muppet videos as well describing like the general lore of Khajiit pantheons as well. But did we just cross? Oh, I believe we just crossed
we're
back into
Cyrodiil.
Cyrodiil.
Yeah.
We're now in Cyrodiil.
Yes, we did.
Seamlessly.
Seamless. Yeah, that's the great thing about Cyrodiil and Elsewhere is that they actually share a world space.
Yes, so you don't even notice. Yeah.
Yeah, so they can steal all of our lovely clutter items.
No clutter items.
Would I steal your clutter items?
We steal yours, so it's unfair.
I did notice one of your bandits was wearing Calavian fur armor. It's like, really? In the desert?
Oh, yeah.
Is he not a bit warm?
Cats love warm.
Maybe a little, yeah.
Oh, you can see
They do.
you can see a very special city on the horizon up there that JDT just looked at, by the way. The spires. We haven't shown those yet, have we?
Well, we have now.
But yeah, I guess Arger, we should thank the Elsewhere peeps for coming and explaining some of the visuals and giving us their inside takes on perhaps what's to come. So
Absolutely.
Thanks to you guys.
You're very
Thanks
welcome.
for showing up.
And
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank you, guys.
And
we're
now
back
we
in
welcome
Cyrodiil.
back, Rhea and Bellatrix and Roast Gorilla. Welcome back.
We did briefly just touch, it was a while ago now, but at the border gate, we moved through the town of Southwold. Another one of my towns I really like. I like all of them in this project, let's just say. It's a town that's under the control of the Countess of Skingrad.
Greetings,
We're in
friend.
County Skingrad now, we're in the West
Sure
Weald.
if you're aware,
Oh,
this is a
it looks like we're being
royalty-only
attacked by a
byway.
highwayman.
But since you don't look like royalty, you have
Generic
to
very
random
polite.
world encounters. Yeah, really.
Is he dressed for the weather?
I'm not sure if you
really
are.
now. Are
He
you
does-
quite
yeah,
sure?
he's-
Yeah,
about
short
that?
sleeves.
Are you quite
We have short sleeves. We're rolled up.
So this is,
The
we've got some encounters implemented into Cyrodiil. Not all of the ones that will be in the final release, obviously, but we've got quite a few
There's more
working
to
now.
come.
So.
And just to clarify a question in chat, the border is still being worked on. It will be more defended than what you saw. That was just convenient for what we're working on right now.
Yeah, I noticed someone asked if there would be a more obvious Dominion presence on the border. I guess that was potentially a question for Elsewhere as well.
Yeah,
I think
Oh, yes, and
anything
here's the-
related to the border is probably, work in progress. I mean,
It's
everything's
quite
work
far
in
down the
progress.
line.
But definitely the borders, with the travel system just being implemented and stuff, it might seem a little barren in some places.
Here's
we were
an interesting question as well. Will we see standing stones outside of Skyrim?
Yes, we will. We've got all the ones that were in Oblivion. Also, we've got those rune stones that gave special effects. Forgot what they're called.
Yeah, I believe they all use the same mechanic as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. as Scarum. So if you get a birth sign in Cyrodiil, it will take over that, if I remember correctly.
We also have the Doomstones as well from Oblivion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Doomstones. That's right.
Yeah. Which are different, I believe. Work differently. They work like they're more similar to Oblivion.
Yeah, there was. They had separate implementation, and it's unfortunate we couldn't have Elscrux on here today, because there was some good work on that, as I recall, not long ago.
Standing stones are really interesting because they're not like. I guess the reason for them existing is to like connect the birth sign constellation lore, to the inhabitants of, and it's not like specific to Nords. Is basically, I guess, what I'm trying to say. I feel like almost all the people in Tamriel have some kind of reverence.
Yeah, and exactly. And here's a relevant question to what we're walking up on right now: is how verdant is Skingrad when compared to Oblivion? How has it changed?
It hasn't changed very much in terms of the landscaping, I don't think. It's the layout is almost the same, I believe.
Yeah, I think Skingrad's one of those cities it's more of an older city, like in that regard.
You can also see the map marker for Skingrad at the top of the screen, which is fully implemented. Oh, and NPCs walking around Skingrad. In fact, I think some of them even have dialogue now. Isn't that great?
I do want to also point out the new walls are made by Dastin, and there's some bridges and stuff that are still being done. But yeah, it absolutely brightens up the place.
Skingrad's come a very long way recently. I did a lot of the writing for the city, and it warms my heart to see it. And yeah, all of the NPCs are now in, and most of them have their dialogue. It's almost a fully functioning city at this point, which is amazing to see.
Do we have time to pop into any interiors, or are we just getting a quick whiz round the...
It's nice to pop into one real quick if you can.
Yeah, we should mention
Spoiler alert. Yeah. Yeah, I
we'll
think
be doing
the whole city has interiors now.
Yeah, hopefully sometime early-ish in the new year. But I think in terms of the questions someone asked earlier about are Skingrad more verdant than Oblivion's? I'm not sure it is particularly. It's just because we're using a much more modern game now, we can get away with a lot more of tree and flora placement. So it just, for me, Skyrim was my first game, and then I played Oblivion, and the landscapes just seem a lot sort of flatter and more dead because they haven't placed as much stuff. And my understanding is a lot of it was generated procedurally. I might be wrong on that, but it looks a lot less detailed than our landscaping. So I think that's why it looks a bit more verdant. But hopefully this is what Bethesda sort of intended Oblivion to look like.
Yeah, and here's a question that kind of applies to all the projects, is with the recent release of Anniversary Edition, has that affected Skyrim, Beyond Skyrim's policy in any way? How dealing with that?
No, it hasn't. We won't be using any Creation Club stuff unless it was added to the update ESM. But we're not going to be using the A-LED tile set. We're using our own.
Mm-hmm.
Though we will retexture some of the clutter items from the A-LED set, like the rubble chunks.
And then here's a perfect. As you saw, we just took a shortcut from one city to the next. We just took a carriage from Skingrad to the beautiful city of Anvil, which I'm happy to show off.
No, this won't work for LE, so... someone just asked.
Yeah, we're releasing on special
This
edition.
is SE.
Yeah.
This is SE only.
I find it really funny when we're going around all the villages and Ree's going, oh, this one's my favourite. I'm like this with all the towns. My favourite town is the one that I've worked on most recently. So it's currently Skingrad. It's about to be Anvil.
My favourite town isn't even the one I worked on most recently. It's just the one that I've looked at the most recently. Right now it's Anvil.
Yeah, really.
Oh, there's a sneak peek of the castle there as well.
Love this part.
I thought he was going there for a second.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the new castle's great.
Oh,
for people who
absolutely.
enjoy Project Tamriel, I think it is, right? Yeah, there was I think there was a little bit of inspiration there, I think.
I really
Yeah,
like the way
Mhm.
all the towns are so different as well. But I think that's true of Beyond Skyrim. If you look from where we've come from, sort of Black Marsh, through the swamps in Cyrodiil, and then off to deserts and elsewhere, and now of 3 really quite lush verdant Skingrad, and then dry sunny Gold Coast. Everywhere's just so different, and then we'll see as we carry on the journey. There's just so many different sort of biomes. It's quite epic. When they're all finished, and this is in my load order, I don't think I'm going to leave the house for a couple of years.
Do we have time to show an anvil interior? We've got
Yeah, the
some
one behind
really
you.
nice ones. Yeah.
That's all right. So we do have a question from chat anyway. Is will dragons appear anywhere in Cyrodiil with the recent dragon crisis if you have that activated?
I think that's probably one for Ree.
I was leaving it, but yes, they will, but not on a only on a case-by-case basis, not randomly spawning. They'll spawn in controlled areas, mostly to the north. And there's the castle again, as in all its glory. It looks really good.
Yeah, from this angle even. The castle is built up over what was it? Not Deep Scorn Hall. What's it called?
Dunbarrow
What was
Cove.
it? Yeah, that's it. Thank you. The Dunbarrow Cove. So which we have now updated, and you can see that it's gorgeous in its representation of so. And now Harry, you want to actually take this one?
I was just gonna give Dronin props for helping work on the castle facelift, is what we're calling it, along with Nugamentum and all of his exterior work on the city recently. It just looks really great.
Absolutely.
We try to be very tightly knit over an anvil.
We're in Hammerfell now, so we should probably.
Yeah, so we just transitioned
probably
over
say
the
goodbye.
border.
It's so hard to say goodbye. Okay. Yeah, thanks to all of our Cyrodiil representatives for sticking with us. I suppose this is the last time we're hearing from you, yeah?
Yeah, we're not going back again, don't worry.
I'm back later for Ross career, but enjoy the rest of the journey.
Yes, thank you so much for accompanying us for it.
Yeah, and enjoy Iliac Bay. See everyone later.
Of course.
Thanks, guys.
Because Cyrodiil is, pretty cool. But, it's only one province after all. Imagine if there were a project where 2 provinces were put together. You don't have to imagine.
Is there such a place?
What a novel concept.
Yeah, we got our reps from Iliac Bay, all the way from Iliac Bay.
Welcome.
Field, Uberman, and Arcane. Thank you, guys.
Hello, everybody.
Would you like to make a quick introduction of yourselves?
Sure, I'm Arcane Impact. I'm a writer for Iliac Bay.
I'm Garfield and my family. I'm the creative director for Iliac Bay. So, as you can see here on the stream, this is the island of Hern. It's a sort of ancient island that the Yakutan people came to on their journey to Tamriel. It's the first place they colonized.
And one of the last bastions of the original Yakutan kind of royalty.
Yeah, the architecture and the flora here is absolutely gorgeous, I have to say.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Do you have any particular real-world inspiration references for this island?
In terms of environment, this island was inspired by the island of Socotra, off the coast of Yemen. Yeah, this sort of arid but alien feel to the landscape. You'll notice the landscape isn't, quite finished looking. The rock textures are quite outdated, and there's a lot left to go on these islands, but they're getting there. What we're coming up to
really
here.
like the trees and the stonework actually that is there. It looks really good.
Right, what we've just entered is one of our Yoku ruins, or more, where one of our Yoku ruins will be. We've left it sort of in this white box state to show you the kind of scale that these ruins are going to have. They are going to be major parts of the landscape.
It's also kind of a nice look at the process of gray boxing in general and how it helps the landscaping in its initial stages.
Mm-hmm. It really helps to get a feel of what eventually is going to be there.
And especially when something that large, you definitely need to block it out as soon as possible. Yeah.
More recently, we did show concept art for the look of those ruins.
Here's a question. Will the Civil War in Skyrim have any impact regarding the story of Hammerfell or High Rock?
Not the main story, but you'll see echoes of the Civil War, in some of the border cities.
And how about the Thalmor? Will there be Thalmor conflicts going on?
They'll have a presence, but nothing particularly major. They'll be doing stuff behind the scenes, but we'll leave other projects to have a major Thalmor influence.
To my understanding, there are a lot of factions unique to Hammerfell that are getting some nice love over in Iliac Bay. It sounds like what the things you guys have cooking are really cool. I think I was
here's probably a common question for you guys as well. We see the outcome of the quest with Sadia in Skyrim play out in Hammerfell.
So far, there's not much planned on it because naturally, a lot of our focus is on the Three Kingdoms region. So the city of Taneth is a bit out of our current scope. So we haven't fully written anything surrounding that just yet.
And this island is part of the Three Kingdoms release, right?
Yes. Everywhere we will be visiting Iliac Bay is part of Three Kingdoms.
Nice. Well, here's another question from Iron Soldier. What guilds will appear, presumably in regards to the Three Kingdoms?
In Three Kingdoms, you'll be seeing not too many of Hammerfell's guilds, but you'll see the Fighters Guild and the Maiden Guild in the city of Johanna. They won't be joinable just yet, though.
You mentioned the Mages Guild. What do you mean by that?
In Johanna, there is a Mages Guild building still there. As far as I'm aware, High Rock still has an operating Mages Guild.
An independent one.
Right, so that was the island of Herne. We took a route around the western side of it. And we're coming up to the island of Kespar here.
Oh, it's interesting you can just swim directly over. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Three Kingdoms will be like Bruma. It's the pre-release for Iliac Bay.
Here's a question. The Iliac Bay is very different from south to north. You intend to have lots of themed loot depending on where you are.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff you get in High Rock will be very different to what you get in Hammerfell. And even depending on where you are in Hammerfell, you'll be getting something related to one of the two major sort of cultures in Hammerfell. There are the traditionalist clap crowns who stick, very rigidly to their ancient customs, and the more modern forebears, who are more open to influence from foreign elements.
And will there be any way to traverse these islands without swimming for immersion purposes? I assume so, right?
You will be able to buy travel from boats between any major port. So right here is some of our clutter for our crown population. They are the more sort of traditional Yakudan culture.
Oh yeah, I love your Hammerfell's clutter. You guys did a fantastic job. Bananas! You got bananas.
Finally.
Yeah, we do have bananas. You can't quite get... We don't quite have the plants that the bananas come from in this area, but when we get to the tropical islands, you'll be able to pick them right off the plant.
It's that kind of attention to detail I love Beyond Skyrim in Beyond Skyrim, is that most of the ingredients you find around, whether it be Hammerfell, High Rock, you'll probably find where they grow now. Now that you can, go pretty much everywhere once everything's in.
Before anyone asks in the chat, those little slightly neon plants, they will be toned down a bit. This guy here is also wearing one of our sort of crown pieces of armor.
Good morning.
That's the leather armor you'll find in crown parts of Hammerfell.
Here's a question. What types of fantasy alcohols will we find here? Or alcohol types of any sort?
In terms of alcohol, in Hammerfell, in Crown regions, there'll be sort of banana beers and millet beers. Whereas in High Rock, you'll have your sort of ales, your whiskies, your nice wines. Speaking of High Rock, we've just pulled into the Kingdom of Johanna here.
It got quite a bit colder too, I noticed.
Yes.
Gotta grab my jacket.
Yeah, so this is quite a bit more north.
Yes, Johanna is right across the border from Skyrim, mostly taking place in a snowy valley.
And in fact has been pulled back and forth between High Rock and Skyrim multiple times.
Regarding that, how do you make Johanna distinct from Skyrim in that it's kind of a mix? So how do you make it stand out from both High Rock and Skyrim cities?
Well, Johanna will you'll be able to see the influence from both Bretons and Nords. It is environmentally and culturally this blending zone between the two regions.
I think you can clearly see it in the architecture, but it's also going to be present in the writing of the city, that it's kind of constantly at war between these two different ideals.
Yeah, you can definitely see it in the architecture. I agree there. I absolutely love the buildings you guys made for the city as well. Oh, Holly.
We are pulling up the city itself now. That's fair enough, yeah.
All right, and it looks like we are approaching that city now. Those walls are just
here we are pulling up to the main gate.
Lovely.
Very imposing. That's what I think of every time I think Iliac Bay cities. It's like very imposing stuff.
Very elegant too. Like you can see the intricacies of the design compared to Imperial walls, which tend to be a bit more form over function. Wait, function over form?
Yeah, you can see some elven influence, it feels like.
That's something that I find interesting in High Rock is they don't really touch upon the elven. Like they're supposed to be half elven wraiths, I think, in the lore.
Right. Yeah.
So it's nice to see a little bit more of that influence if you guys are doing that.
In a different way,
major degree.
It feels like.
Yeah. New clothes. So do you have any points you guys want to discuss about this city while we're here?
Well, I suppose we can talk about sort of stylistically. You can tell it's got this sort of heavy Nordic influence, and that divide is seen quite heavily in the city. So you'll have an inn that's mostly used by the Nord population and a fancier one by the local Bretons. And, in a lot of the surrounding landscape, you have these, there's one illegally settled Nordic village called Youngveld.
This is one of the richest cities in High Rock, isn't it?
Johanna, it's not particularly wealthy as far as I'm aware, but it has a culture
Just
that sort of features a lot of... Yeah, it's a culture very heavily focused around craftsmanship because they worship the goddess Debella most heavily. So a lot of their sort of local culture is themed around beauty and craftsmanship.
All right, so it looks like we actually just passed out of Iliac Bay, if I'm correct, and we're heading now to the far eastern shores of Morrowind. So thank you, all of you, for joining us today, and from the High Rock and Hammerfell team. And we'd like to yeah, say goodbye to you and bring in the Morrowind team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Can you guys introduce yourselves, Larry and Meglos? Welcome.
Hello. I'm Meglos. I'm the artistic director of Beyond Skyrim Morrowind.
And I am Larry, and I'm the design director of Beyond Skyrim Morrowind. It's good to be here.
Good to have you.
Great to have you. I can see the Bantam Guar we have on screen as well. That's a great way to start off.
The chicken model.
Yep. They're adorable.
Yeah, we're very happy with those.
Yeah, one of ESO's good ideas. So that's one of the things we like doing, is taking bad ESO ESO ideas and putting our own spin on
Questionable
them.
ESO ideas.
Yeah, but the Bantam Guar is one of the good ones, I think. So.
Really, all of your creatures, from what I've seen, are just absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we've got some really great artists who've done creatures for us. So, and you'll see a couple of them, I think, on the stream today.
So, what can you tell us about where we are right now?
So this is Bal. You go, Meglos.
So this is Bal Serma. This is otherwise known as Bleak Rock Isle. You might recognize from ESO. Basically, this is like a Redoran colony town where the big trade used to be ebony mining, except nowadays it's kind of struggling a little bit. So a lot of the themes we're trying to go for here is that of a sort of struggling frontier town, people just trying to make ends meet, living in some not so great conditions and all that.
Yeah, a commenter pointed out how different it looks from when they last saw it in ESO. I think just less snow, mostly.
Yeah. Well, what happened was the Red Mountain kind of exploded all over it.
Yeah.
That would warm it up a bit, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's still snow on Bleak Rock. I think the idea is that while it definitely snows on Bleak Rock, ash falls on the snow more than it snows, so that it kind of ends up, being covered in ash more than snow.
Yeah, what we saw was the southern bit, and if you were to go to the northern bit of Bleak Rock, you would see a little bit of snow there.
Yeah, these are some vestigial Nordic ruins, because the Nordic Empire managed to get pretty far east, and you'll see a couple of these scattered around the New North, but I think this is the most easterly one that we have.
So speaking of Nords, there was a question asking, are Nords still around on Bleak Rock Isle?
No, not on Bleak Rock.
Yeah, Bleak Rock is mostly Dunmer inhabited now.
Yeah.
But when we get to Dagonfell, that's where you'll see the majority of our Nord population.
Yeah.
Nice.
What you said about the snow and ash, it makes for a really cool color scheme that I feel like is kind of unique.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
All the grays and browns, yeah.
I guess New North is mostly greys and browns, so leaning into more interesting executions of look at all this grey and brown is probably a good idea. So, yeah.
Speaking of ashy lands, what kind of other settlements besides Shiograd do you guys plan or are planning on having on Vardenfell that are still active, if any?
We have the Telvanni towns. The eastern half of Vardenfell wasn't hit as hard by the Red Year as the western half. So, at least in our lore in BS Morrowind, Balmora, there's been attempts to re-establish it as a town, but they've been broadly unsuccessful. Whereas most of the Telvanni settlements in the east have been kind of spared the worst of the Red Year. I mean, obviously they've still been affected, but, overall, they're doing okay.
What about Blacklight? Do you guys plan on having that present in the release, or presumably later on?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, in the main release we'll have Blacklight. And you can even see it from here.
Oh, really?
Over there, yeah. There's the city over there in the distance. Blacklight is covered in a big tent to keep out the ash. because blacklight exists in a natural crater, it's a pretty logical decision to put something over the crater to keep all the ash out. Otherwise, it would just get buried.
That's really cool.
It was definitely one of the more different ideas that we ended up having, but we had a really great concept artist who worked on the ideas for that, and it ended up being really cool. So it'll be good to see it'll be good for players to see that from the New North.
So the area we're walking across right now is known as Stalingradory. It's basically what we're calling the little chain of islands that stretch between Bleak Rock and Sheogorad. Basically, we wanted to fill in the Sea of Ghosts a little bit more than was already kind of in vanilla and the lore, because having just 2 islands with a big empty space in between them is probably a little bit boring, and we wanted to kind of spice it up and flesh it out. So one of the things, what we're just coming up on right now, is one of our Reaver camps. And Reavers are the main kind of bandit type you'll find in the New North. And we actually spent quite a bit of time developing different flavors of them, different factions. So some are more Nordic leaning, some are very Nordic, and some are Dwemer Reavers. So throughout the New North, you'll see little camps and settlements and strongholds that are all kind of themed around one of those 3 things. And that way, we figured we'd make our bandits a little bit more interesting than just random people with swords attacking you.
Yeah.
So one question that popped up was, what degree are you guys working with Skywind on assets? And would there?
We've actually. Yeah, so we've had some asset trades with Skywind. For example, the lava that you see in the New North is from Skywind. We are planning on using the shaders and materials and stuff that they developed to make some of our own lava assets. On that flip side, we gave them our Ancestral Tomb tile set, and they've done some pretty cool stuff with that. They've given it new textures and new pieces as well that they've made as well. So yeah, we've had some trade with Skywind, and I think that's been beneficial for both projects. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so that kind of collaboration is the spirit of this entire thing, which I absolutely love.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah, go on.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just gonna ask a question. What was your favorite lore addition when making the New North for you guys?
Oh, that's a hard question.
Yeah, there were a lot. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cliff Racer.
That was a Cliff Racer.
Those ones, by the way, are not enemies currently. Those are just statics, like the hawks in Skyrim.
Yeah.
I'm getting some
questions.
Getting some questions asking about the extinction mention of Cliff Racers in the past. You guys want to clarify on that?
Cliff Racers were exterminated on Vardenfell, but not the rest of Morrowind. And now they can't establish themselves in Vardenfell, because Vardenfell is basically uninhabitable except for the parts of it that are controlled by the Telvanni. So there's not much. So there are cliff racers in the rest of Morrowind. Around this area, they're not openly hostile. I think they're probably a different species, but yeah.
Interesting.
As for the lore additions, I'd say that we've done some cool stuff with like the Nordic populations around here, and the blend between Nordic and Dunmerry culture, because in real life, when two cultural or ethnic groups are next to each other, there's no hard borders. There's always blending and fusion of the cultures, and I think that's been a really cool thing to see. Like, there's been a lot of passion on our team about bringing both the Nordic and Dunmerry sides of this part of Tamriel to life. So that's been fun.
Yeah, and another thing that we've been doing is taking some of the lore bits about Nords that were never used in Skyrim, but were in the concept art and like previous art for Morrowind and that sort of thing, and kind of trying to bring those to life a little bit.
Yeah.
And speaking of cliff racers, will there be any reference to Saint Jib or any saints at all? I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, the Dunmer are very religious, so there's a lot of references to the saints and a lot of just temple and religion stuff in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And another one, which I think is appropriate as we're walking around, as we had carts on Cyrodiil, will Silt Striders still be around anywhere in Morrowind, or will the one on Solstheim really be the only one?
As adults,
probably won't get into
and
too much detail because we're gonna maybe do something with that, but
a little too early to describe.
Yeah.
But I would say that the main thing is Silt Striders are not used, at least for what they were in TS3 anymore. Mostly because there's not really any of them left. So I would say that a tentative sort of yes to the last one being in Solstheim.
Yes, with an asterisk.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're on Sheergorad now.
Yeah, we should be getting close to our first dungeon segment here.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I guess we will be seeing interiors. Somebody asked about that.
Yeah.
Somebody had a pretty good question, I guess, from Sebastian Lugo. Will the fact that Neloth makes you a member of the Telvanni in Dragonborn, will that have any effect on your standing in Morrowind?
Not in the New North, because there's no Telvanni, really, any Telvanni people in the New North. In the main release, probably not either. I think...
Yeah. Believe it or not, that's one of the most common questions we get asked.
Yeah.
So we have our answer pretty well prepared for that. Basically, Neloth is sort of considered an outcast from the Telvanni in general. So any sort of titles and standings he gives you is mostly a formality and not anything of real significance in the actual Telvanni world.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because obviously we want to acknowledge the fact that if the player did that, then we want it to be brought up a little bit. But we also don't want to shortchange any of the sort of faction quests and that sort of thing that we want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So what can you tell me about this island we're walking on, Sheergorad, was it?
Yeah.
Well, basically, if you remember in TES3, it's home to a large Nordic population, and we've kept that aspect of it while also introducing a lot more Dunmer population that has moved in. The whole town was destroyed in Red Year, but has since been rebuilt.
Yeah.
And you'll see when we get there eventually the sort of cross we've been doing between the Dunmer and Nordic styles and how those mesh together.
So we're into Ancestral Tombs now. These are the tombs where the Dunmer bury their cremated dead, and you'll see a lot of bone walkers here as well, which are the reanimated guardians of the tombs, and they keep it from crumbling apart, a bit like the Draugr. And the tombs fill a similar sort of gameplay role as the Nordic tombs do. They'll definitely be the most common dungeons, at least in the main Morrowind release. I think in New North Caves are more common. And we've also tried to make them a little bit more interesting from a gameplay perspective. So the thing you saw earlier was a small ghost gate, similar to the ghost fence that you see around Red Mountain in The Elder Scrolls 3, and we've tried to incorporate that to make this less of a monotonous dungeon crawl like you'd find in a Nordic ruin. If that makes sense.
I really like that. That's a cool inclusion. And man, does this look beautiful? Everything in here, from pretty much every asset I'm looking at, is just polished as heck.
Yeah.
One of our resident 3D artists, Deer, she did an amazing job on the Ancestral Tombs, and probably about 2/3 of the assets you see here were made by her, and she's done an amazing job. So.
And the Bone Walkers were made by Hype, one of our character artists, and he did. What the Bone Walkers you see here are just wearing the sort of basic clothing. We've also got lots of variants wearing like armor and masks and all sorts of stuff. That was one of the things we wanted to expand on from the way they were depicted in TES3, because in that game they were sort of these like hulking, like kind of roughly put together, like brutish creature type things. And we thought that the Dunmer, who are so careful about like dressing up their tombs and kind of protecting them and taking care of them, would probably want something a little bit more refined or polished walking around in them. So we've got ones that are still kind of rough with like bones sticking out and nails, and those will be in the less taken care of tombs, the ones that are really old and abandoned. And then when you get to the more well-kept ones, you'll see ones with armor and masks and nicer weapons and things like that.
Yeah.
And here's a pretty apt question, I think. Will there be any penalties, presumably political, for transgressing in Ancestral Tombs?
Not in the New North, mostly because the New North doesn't have enough of a sort of centralized religious political entity to deal with that. But I think in Southern Morrowind that is more likely to be the case. Southern Morrowind and Indoril as a faction are very much more strict and authoritarian around how they deal with religious transgressions. So I imagine that's the sort of thing that won't be massively appreciated.
Yeah,
a lot of tombs,
you can see in here, in all these tombs are kind of, or most of the ones you'll see in the New North are kind of like a little bit run down. You can see there's cobwebs and broken stuff everywhere. But when you get to mainland tombs, especially in places like Necrom, they're going to be a lot more polished and orderly. And I imagine we'll inflict some kind of trespassing penalty for the player if they go where they shouldn't be.
And just to answer a quick question from somebody, the little triangular things you see are scrolls, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, they are. That was another Deer creation. It was a really, really cool idea to have the scrolls be wrapped around a triangle.
Yeah, they look very appropriate.
It's a very Morrowind thing. Don't mind the placeholder book that just says religious.
Careful with those, because I read one of those once and the game crashed.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, that was good.
It's a holy book.
Forbidden knowledge.
Forbidden knowledge.
Yeah. I love the. Was that the Ancestral Guardian or some such?
Yeah, the Ancestor Ghost. Eventually what we're going to do is we're going to record phrases in Dunmaris for them to shout, so it's a bit less weird to them to be shouting in English at you.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's cool. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we try to minimize that sort of thing, like we making Morrowind feel as a big part of making a culture feel alien and separate is the language and the art and everything like that, and kind of separating that from what we see in Skyrim, or the Nordic culture is definitely a big part of it, and that comes down to voice acting as well. So it doesn't make much sense for an ancient ghost to be shouting stuff at you in perfect English. Here's one of the more fancy.
This is some of our newest armor and kind of creature implementation here with the Bone Walker fancy stuff. We're very, very happy with how these turned out.
Yeah. This wasn't. I don't think this was leveled properly, but that's alright.
Maybe not.
So you go.
Vaguely related is how is the I believe I saw a quest video not very long ago. It was a dev diary or something. But how is implementation and writing going for New North so far? Is it going pretty well? Or are you looking for any specific recruits?
Well, as for writing, we're pretty much set. Like, we have our set quests and side quests and everything, and those are all largely finished. So we're at a place where we're kind of soft locked for content. Anything that gets added will just be very minor stuff like encounters. And we've started the process of implementing quests. We've got a few that are already in the game and working.
And that's going quite well.
It's incredible. Great to hear.
Do we have a crash? Nice. Anyway, so I think the one of the biggest things we're looking for at the moment are level designers. People to help us finish the dungeons and play with some new tile sets as well. Would be very good.
Yeah, particularly if you're interested in new tile sets, because we have our tomb set, and we are going to have our Dwemer Ruins set.
So Dwemer are done. We're just waiting on working on some extra clutter for those before they're open for level design, and then we have also the Velothi Tower set, but that hasn't been finished yet. We've only got 1 or 2 Velothi Towers that will have explorable interiors in the New North. We're very happy with how the New North is going.
Awesome. Yeah. Here's another question. It absolutely does. I'm just blown away by how everything's looking so far.
We definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, sorry, I got lost a bit. But somebody asked if there will be any remnants of the old tribunal in the New North.
Depends what they mean by remnants.
We're going to have some statues and murals and things.
So we have also some more like sacrilegious and older religious texts that refer to the tribunal in a lot more praise than the current temple is comfortable with. The current temple is quite revisionist in the way it approaches the tribunal. So most religious texts from the second and third era have been revised and partially rewritten to kind of reflect a tribunal that fits their narrative a lot more. So, for example, the 36 lessons of Vivek, for example, were partially rewritten, and you can find the original copies, and they are not legal to actually possess.
Looks like we found some Reavers here too.
Yeah, these are Uakam Tong, the Dunmer faction of Reavers that we've got. They've got some kind of unique attacks and effects that they can do. The one in the back is shooting these little fire bolts at you, for example. That was a new effect that we made.
Yeah, we want the bandits in Morrowind to feel more,
I remember seeing this outfit.
And interesting. Yeah, is that the Dust Adept?
Yeah.
Really cool. Another question that I saw in the chat was there was mention in Solstheim of House Sadras taking over as one of the great houses. Do you have any lore you guys are playing with them?
So Sadras, at least in our lore, was previously a Hlalu vassal house, so a minor house underneath the great house Hlalu. And then when the rest of Morrowind decided that Hlalu had transgressed enough, Sadras was promoted to fill the position of the Great House, and the balance of power shifted from Narcissus to Kraganmore, because Kraganmore is the ancestral city of House Sadras, whereas Narcissus is the ancestral city of House Hlalu. There are still some more like kind of underground Templarly dissidents, but House Sadras has done a pretty good job of filling the role overall.
Awesome. Let's see. Oh yeah, here's one related to the bandits that we just fought a little bit ago. Will you be able to learn the different, the new spells you guys are making, and will the player be able to use them?
Good question.
Some of them at least eventually.
Yeah. They're a very new addition, those new spells, so that sort of question we still need to answer for ourselves.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It'll require a bit of testing.
Yeah, especially like I'm sure you can tell that we're not quite at the balancing phase yet, where we kind of level everything and make sure all that is appropriate yet. But overall, yeah.
What about
this sorry, you go on.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead. I'm rather hear about what the cave we're in right now.
That's what I was going to say. So this is a former 6th house lair, which is where you can see attacking. So I think are they ghouls? I think that's what
they're ash
zombie.
Ash
zombies. That's the one.
Yeah,
it says
the
it
ones
there.
It does. The ones that had the little weird like thing coming out of their forehead
the little
in
tentacle,
Morrowind.
yeah.
They're now skeletons that are just undead.
Yeah, so the 6th house doesn't really factor into Morrowind anymore. I think that story has been well told and well trodden, but it's good to have a couple of little nods like this here and there.
Yeah, this is probably the most sort of you'll see is just little remnants here and there in the underground places.
Yeah. One of our level designers, Cothry, did a really great job with this with this cave here. It's really, really good level design. Like I'm very proud of
is this a new tile set or?
This is the vanilla cave with a retexture and stalagmites, but it's interesting because it feels like a new tile set because it's just so different to the base game. We stripped out all of the shiny green vertex painting in the vanilla game and made them just grey rock with some sand floors here, and I think it works.
A perceptive viewer noticed the chairs in this place.
Yes. Yeah.
I think those were just kind of
interesting what's going on there.
They're just kind of. I think they were just stacked like that to give them a cool silhouette, and like I guess the idea is that, you know, they used to have like little meetings of cult personnel, and you know, someone nicely stacked the chairs when they were done, and they just have remained that way ever since.
I really like that as an explanation for why there's random stacks of chairs in 6th house caves in Morrowind. That's great.
I mean, if you've got a bunch of cultists together, you need to give them a place to sit and be comfortable while you're plotting the destruction of the world.
Do you think everyone has to carry their chair back and stack it up at the end of the
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah. Or the person who arrived late would have to do it.
Yeah.
Here's a question: I assume we're getting a little close to leaving the cave. Is Vardenfell a wasteland, an absolute wasteland? If so, is there any survival mechanics you guys are implementing in regards to it being largely uninhabitable?
When we get around to the main release, I imagine yes, we will probably do some play with survival mechanics on Vardenfell. I think that'd add a lot to somewhere that otherwise doesn't have a lot going for it. It'll have locations, but it's not going to be really inhabited. And that's also a deliberate thematic decision as well. You know, Vardenfell's been well trodden, and I think it's time that, you know, we explore what else Morrowind has to offer. I will also note the map markers. They are new and they look pretty good, but I didn't implement them properly, so I apologize for the weird ghosty buggy 2 marker up there. I don't know why it's light grey like that. Anyway, that's a side note.
And look good regardless. Absolutely. A couple people asked about now this is a bit far from the New North, but about the House Drez and the war with the Argonians. What's the state of that in modern Morrowind? Those two, I guess.
It's kind of a stalemate at the moment. House Drez has been pushed out of most of its original territory, and the border is occupied by an Argonian faction called the Lagahui that have just been staying there for the last couple of 100 years. They've successfully colonized a very small strip of land in southern Morrowind, and have taken over the city of Tyr and a couple of other Drez settlements, and driven House Drez up to the border of Indoril territory. So not great for Drez, but it's not like they're going to get much further, the Argonians.
Yeah, so you guys almost have a little bit. Oh, yeah.
We've got one of our new Dwemer Ruins up here.
Yes,
this whole set is quite new, and we're very excited about it. Larian did a very good job on it.
Oh, very picturesque.
It was a lot of work, I'll say, to get the Dwemer tile.
I can't even imagine.
But I'm really happy with the direction we've gone in with the Dwemer set. I think it's a really nice kind of fusion of the more modern geometric Dwemer style and the old PES3 weird
Just
execution,
industrial kind of heavy style. Yeah.
So we're nearly at Dagonfell now.
Oh, happy birthday, Florin Aslan. And in the chat. And also, a common question I see is what level of kind of how do I put this? From Soul's Time, what kind of things are transitioning, or are you guys carrying over from Soul's Time, from like Reeklings or Nyx Hounds? Will you be able to swim there? Things like that.
You can't swim there. It's in the distance in LOD. Maybe we'll have maybe we'll figure out a way, but probably you won't be able to swim there. I'd give that like a 5% chance of that being able to happen.
I love the graffiti and walls, by the way.
Yeah. So this is a representation of the cultural and racial tension that's going on in Dagonfell, and the recent Redoran colonization of the town as well, with the big kind of fortress. We have these posters as well made by Dia. She did a great job on those too. So it's definitely we tried to make both Dagonfell and Balserma feel very much kind of a colonial vibe. So I guess we're heading to Roscrea now. But thank you everyone for tuning in to have a look at Morrowind. We appreciate
Thank you guys for coming along to describe the place to us.
Thank you, Argor, for guiding us with some questions as well. That was appreciated.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Everyone, thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed what you see.
Stay tuned for more exciting stuff from Morrowind in the future.
Absolutely.
We will be waiting eagerly.
All right.
All right,
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Later. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest, Arger. I don't really believe in ghosts, let alone a sea of ghosts. That's where Roscrea is supposedly located, and maybe exists, but we don't really know much about this place. Maybe some of its natives can tell us more.
Nothing as we mean to go on.
Bellatrix, Kilretu, perhaps you can lead us on this journey.
Welcome.
Hopefully, yes. So at the moment we have fast travel to Craneshaw, which is the main imperial settlement on the island, and we've got our brand new tile set, which was in no way just implemented today. So this is the first time for us actually looking around the updated houses as well, and it's made a big difference to the overall look of the town. But so this is sort of it's an imperial settlement. Lots of frontier feelings about it. It's probably sort of like the safest place on the island if you're coming here from Tamriel. But now we're obviously leaving that and going to go on a bit of a Roscrean wilderness adventure.
I do have a question about something that was shown off recently, something that may be a pet. So what about the rock scrapers? What can you tell me about them?
I can go for that one. I haven't properly introduced myself yet. I'm Aaron. I'm quality assurance and one of the narrative leads for Beyond Skyrim Walkabout. And so the rock scrapers, we recently showed them off. We've had them in the build for quite a while at this point. They're a docile creature. They will not attack you and run from just the wild ones run from people as you encounter them. But you can domesticate them, or people have domesticated them, the natives have. We are not yet disclosing whether or not one can be a pet, but I think if...
Based on feedback from yesterday,
yeah,
it seems likely there's going to be a pet. I don't think it had really occurred to us, but we got a lot of fan feedback saying, can we have one as a pet? So we'll give it a go.
Yep.
No promises, though.
And here's an apt question for Roscria. Oh, apt's my favorite word of the day. But what are they called? What animal cults are present on Roscria?
So we can see on this island the majority of the ones that you may be familiar with from the Nordic Ruins in Skyrim. So the current cults that are still existing on the island are the bear cult, the owl cult, and the hawk cult. But the majority of the other Nordic cults did survive on this island, but have since become extinct, so to speak. So you'll be able to traverse ruins for the fox cult. You'll be able to traverse ruins for the whale cult, for the dragon cult.
This bandit has the new iron armor set as well, in by Havono. And it's very interesting, the cult thing. In some ways, Roscria is Beyond Skyrim, but not really. It's just has that little bit of religious element put in, I would say. But you guys are doing your best to try and make it visually distinct from Skyrim. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, we are. I guess the cults on Roscria, obviously the Atmorans who went to Skyrim and then they encountered the Iliac Empire and sort of everything got absorbed into the Iliac pantheon. Whereas obviously that's never really happened on Roscria, so it's almost like a sort of how Skyrim might have evolved if that had never happened. So yeah, it's quite interesting that the old religion's still going on Roscria. We have taken a lot of themes from the sort of the Draugr dungeons, and our imaginations run wild with what they might be in the present day.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the goals I'd say is that upon first glance, you'll see a lot of stuff very familiar from Skyrim when you go to Roscria, but the closer you look at it, the more you'll really come to appreciate, I'd say, the cultural differences and just visual differences even too from the base game.
Yeah, so hopefully you can just about tell there's a shared heritage, but it should feel quite a different playing experience.
So anyway. Can you guys tell me about the cave we're in right now? Got some sort of bandits of some sort.
So these are the Corsairs, which are our equivalent bandit faction, and the name is actually likely going to change because we have our native Roscrian names for them, Vashokar, which is likely what they will be called for the full release, but they're Corsairs for now. And they're similar to bandits in certain regards, but they are not the same culturally because they have their own culture. They worship different gods than the Roscrians. Mm-hmm. They come from an Atmoran seafaring culture, and we've got quite a bit of interesting lore that I don't want to spoil right now, that you can read up on and get to experience when we release.
Yeah, I guess if anything,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I guess if anything, they're closer to pirates. So I don't know if anyone's seen some of our older playthroughs where we start off and do the whole journey to Craneshore. As part of that, you do get attacked by Corsairs on the way out. So yeah, they're sort of, because Roscrea is very watery, they're more like pirates, really.
Yeah, I like that seafaring element to it.
Do we want to talk about the overhauls to the dungeon set? I know Kel is in the call, and he is one of the people who's led kind of the transition and the development of this set. So,
I can talk a bit about it.
Hi, Kel.
Hi, yeah, I'm Kelretu, one of the art leads for Roscrea. So the idea with the dungeon set is pretty much what was said earlier about how Roscrea evolved different to Skyrim. We wanted to kind of keep some similarity to the original Nordic dungeon set, but kind of experimented with it in some other directions, use other materials, and it's still a bit in progress. Though you can see some bronze elements, especially, and different stones used. Also, the patterns and motifs for various stuff is quite different to the Skyrim ones. So it's interesting to work on, and it's not entirely finished yet, but I think it's in a state where you can already see that it is quite different and has a very different feel to it, even though it's still keeping a similarity.
Yeah, I absolutely love the new dungeons. Here's a question I want to throw in real quick. Has been asked a couple times. Will the animal cults have massive power, like in Skyrim?
So
does anybody know?
Each cult has at least one, if not multiple artifacts, but we decided instead of giving them all the same artifact, it would be much more interesting for them to each kind of fill a different role. So there's a great sword for one, there's a staff for another, there's armor for some, and they kind of, the different weapons and equipment and the effects that they have reflect the subcultures and the kind of facets of society that each of the cults pertain to. So, for instance, you'll see the Hawk cult, I believe, has a bow, which
yes, it does,
fits well with the cultural traditions of that totem.
Yeah, I guess they don't necessarily have different powers, but the different cults still have different functions within Roscrean society, so they will feel quite different, and how you interact with them will be different depending on which particular cult it is.
Oh, the Frostbite Spiders are placeholders. We have our own spiders that were
you had something to say earlier,
but they're not here yet.
What was it?
The Frostbite Spiders are not. They're placeholders, and apologies.
Ah, gotcha. Well, thanks for clarifying. I guess I'll jump to another question from the chat. Do the Roscreans, the native Roscreans, do they consider themselves Nords or Atmorans or Giants even?
I think they would consider themselves Roscrean.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. They're distinct enough at this point. They definitely don't consider themselves mainlanders. They don't consider themselves related to anyone from Tamriel. And although they still do have some of their tradition comes from Atmora, they definitely, at this point, would consider themselves quite distinct from that culture.
And they're quite hostile to outsiders as well, which will hopefully become evident to the player when you actually start playing the mod, but I don't think they enjoyed being colonised.
I don't believe anybody would. So that's good to see it's represented.
Yeah, so initially they'll be very suspicious of you and not necessarily particularly friendly.
Yeah, certainly, and a lot of the challenges we've seen with writing have been related to properly characterizing them in such a way where they can be hostile to the player, but also not tread the same themes over and over and over again for, the majority of the NPCs in our mod. But we've done a lot of work to develop the culture and develop the characterization in such a way that I think it's really shaping up to be something unique.
Awesome. And speaking of the dungeon we're in, something common you see in Skyrim is word walls. So will dragons or word walls have any appearance at all in Roscrea? Or new shouts even?
Not really, no. No, we're trying to get away from Skyrim and make it feel like its own unique experience.
Yeah, I like that as well.
Yeah, I'd say that the dragon cult in Roscrea was toppled very quickly, and so they don't have much of a cultural impact in comparison to many of the other cults on the island, especially the bear cult, who kind of filled their shoes as the dominant political power on the island. And so you'll see that a lot of the more Dragon Cult oriented aspects of Nordic Ruins in base game Skyrim are not going to make an appearance here, or will be much more infrequent. The Skeevers are placeholders as well.
So, speaking of placeholders, is there any recruits specifically you're looking for? What kind of skills does Roscrea need right now?
I guess the main things we're looking for at the moment are editors. So we've got a lot of our quests nearly finished in terms of writing that we could do with a few more editors just to speed up the sort of final proofreading so we can get that in game. And we could definitely do with a few more implementers as well. So once those quests are locked and ready to go in game, we need ideally a couple more people to help us with that. A little bit of 3D work. So I know we've shown a couple of placeholder animals, but we are gratifyingly through our to-do list and sort of getting towards working on the nice-to-haves now. But yeah, more 3D artists are always very welcome. Don't know if anyone wants to chime in with anything else. They're probably the sort of the main ones.
Interior level designers, I would say, for dungeons, yes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we do have a few more dungeons to finish as well. Most of the house interiors are finished, or at least just need one more sort of little polish before they're done.
I don't know what they were, but those roots sticking out of the ground were pretty cool that we saw.
I don't believe there's any lore behind them currently. They are one of our harvestables. And they are, again, one of those things where you approach the forest, the pine forests in Roscrea, and from a first glance, they seem somewhat familiar to the forests you'll see in Falkreath or other parts of Skyrim, but you look at them a little closer, you realize just how different this island is.
There was some discussion at one point about having them have a sap that's involved in a couple of quests, but I can't remember whether that's made it into the final thing or not.
I believe that's a different tree, which we will not be showing off.
Right, okay. Change slightly. So this is, I guess, the first Roscrean settlement you get to, and when you leave Crane Shore. So hopefully this now starts to feel very, very different from the sort of the Imperial outpost, and a lot more sort of, sort of Skyrim-y, but even sort of more hunter-gathery and subsistence living than even Skyrim.
Yeah, and we also get our first look at the new, was it Fruthil guard armor? The Roscrean guard armor?
Well, Bear Cult, really, because that was the settlement of Stonewall, which is a village. It's where most of the mithril is mined on the island, and so it's of utmost importance for both factions. And as you would have seen just a couple of minutes ago there, you have Imperial settlement outside of the walls, and on the inside of the walls, the natives live there. And that settlement in particular is very tense because it is the epicenter of this cultural interaction and this cultural divide. And so tensions are very high there, and you'll see that through the writing.
Awesome. It looks like we're now starting to get into the little bit colder areas of Roscrea as we go a little bit higher.
Foreshadow.
Before
Yeah.
we get to the absolute icebox that is Atmora.
Exactly.
Mhm. We've it's pretty incredible what we've traveled through so far. We've gone all the way from tropical swampland of Argonia and through deserts and mountains all the way up, and we're almost to the northern tip.
The goats flee.
Ibexes.
Yeah, they're not goats. Come on. No, they're ibex, yeah.
Sorry.
And I always love this little tunnel right here, too. It's kind of cool.
It's like being in the Alps.
I am not a learned man.
There was a question saying earlier, can we mine mithril, or can we see mithril armor during the stream? I don't believe it's ready yet.
I
Correct.
don't think it's quite ready yet.
Yeah, it's probably not placed. Absolutely, you can iron mithril. I'm not sure if you can get rich off it, but yeah, it's it's a new ore in ingots. The Rosicrucians are far better at doing it than anyone else, though, so you might want to leave it to them. But yeah, a large part of the story is around the sort of the imperial colonization to try and exploit the unique resources here on Roscrea and the tensions that creates.
That was a really cool shot. What was he looking at?
This is the bear cult capital city of Frithul, and we're not going to be visiting it today, I don't believe, but you'll find that this city is very, very hostile towards the player initially. No foreign invader has ever stepped foot in that city for the entirety of its existence, and that's not something that any of the leadership of the bear cult wants to change.
It's very unique to Roscrea, I noticed, because it seems like most cities you can just walk in and start doing your thing, but having that initial block is pretty unique.
You won't be blocked for too long. There's we don't intend to really, limit gameplay in any manner by doing so, but for narrative purposes, yes, it will be initially somewhat difficult to gain entry there.
I think you can't really get up to the Chief's complex, and a couple of points where there might be other characters that you become friendly with, and they're sort of trying to get into the town as well, and things like that. But yeah, it should feel quite tense and quite hostile to outsiders, but at the same time we don't really want to block anything off because we know people like to roleplay and explore as well. It's how to get that balance of making it feel like it's not welcome to outsiders, but without completely locking you out of content if you don't want to play in a certain way.
Exactly. So we're now coming up on the Roscrean village of Eandor, or First Port, and this place is kind of a small port that services Frithul. Not of much significance currently, but it has great historical significance, as we'll see coming up, because this was the first spot where the Roscreans landed when fleeing the Frostfall in Atmora. And right up here, we can actually see a statue of their hero god, Ross, who was the one who had led them away from Atmora across the sea.
Yeah, I haven't seen that before yet. It looks fantastic in game.
It really
Yes,
does.
it was implemented today.
Makes sense.
So now from here, from the last point, or from the first point entering Roscrea, we're going to go to the from where Ross and all of the Roscrians came.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure having you guys, you Roscrian guys, on the stream today. You've given us a fantastic walkthrough. So we'd like to, I guess, say goodbye to you and finally arrive on these frozen shores.
Thank you. It's been fun. I can't wait to see Atmora. This is probably the bit I've been waiting for, so I will leave you to get on with it.
Yeah, it's one thing
It was
really.
a real treat.
Yeah, thanks. That's one thing I really like about Atmora is it's just like it's so secretive that not the people of Tamriel, the people of our teams, in a lot of cases, don't really know much about it. And so I think in the chat now we have some writers from Atmora, not writers, but some members of Atmora. Hendris,
yes.
Would you like to
Hello.
introduce yourself?
Welcome to Atmora. I'm the leading writer of Atmora, and I'll be showing you through the Fulgrim, which is a foresty area to the north of the ancient city of Ulkevik.
Ulkevik.
There's a term for you.
Yes, Ulkevik is actually one of the only cities that appear in official lore. It's a great harbor city to the south, or on the southern shores of Atmora, where the legendary Iskamor had his 2 ships built.
Absolutely love the clutter already.
Yes. And over there, actually, we have our first, not a little enemy,
That is horrifying.
but Istrirot.
Oh my! Oh, jeez. When I saw the screenshot, I thought that was some sort of tree. I didn't realize that was an enemy. Huh. That is insane. Wow.
Yeah. Atmora actually has its own language, and while I'm not well versed in it yet, but many of the names will be in Atmoran, and the player will have the ability to try to gain an understanding of this ancient language.
I like this chat. What in oblivion is that? Very appropriate.
Yeah. So this swampy area is known as the Fulgrim, and legends say that this place has had an interesting connection to the Woodland Man.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Something that comes up in mythology a few times, or in the Atmoran pantheon. We now know him as Hemeos Mora, the god of ancient knowledge. And as we're currently fighting them, there's the Hair Cult. The Hair Cult is an Atmoran faction, or was an Atmoran faction, that served Hemeos Mora, and that was yeah. We're actually going to pick up their armor now. The Hair Cult is an interesting one, because their whole thing is that they wanted to steal as much knowledge as possible. And that's something that the player will be able to inquire about and find out during a few of the quests that take place here.
I'm with the chat in this one. I'm absolutely loving that the armor and the creature so far. So definitely news to me. And so here's a question from chat. How big, roughly, if you guys can say, is the playable area on Atmora relative to other places?
I think the world space itself is easily the size of Skyrim. However, due to the frost and the icy water, not a lot of it will be easily traversable.
Right. And I've always really liked that kind of style of mechanic, having the world be so harsh in certain parts of it, where it kind of, you can go to these places perhaps, but it might be more, perilous in some ways, or you wouldn't want to stay there long for one reason or another.
Yes, definitely. Atmora is one of those places where you don't want to be here too long.
Yeah.
In general.
In general, especially, yeah. It's so cold, it's icy, and it's beyond me why someone would ever dare to step foot on these cursed shores.
Oh, here's a question. That's one thing I really like about Atmora, from what I've seen, is that it's just so different from the other projects. It's really unique in its gameplay style in that way. I noticed there was a question as well about would there be any Frostfall like patches or collaboration in that regard, or any new mechanics like that?
Yes, there is. So while we have originally planned to use Frostfall, with the Anniversary Edition coming into full force, and with the Survival mod that is now available to everyone, we're probably going to switch to Survival mode instead of Frostfall. But that is, I think, as of now, still being discussed. So we do intend for the full experience that the player will use either of them.
Fascinating.
As Atmora, so the main topics of Atmora are exploration and survival, which means that the player is encouraged to seek shelter whenever they can, and to gather as much as possible to have their odds of surviving this continent increase gradually.
So here's another question: is besides the races of man, which is the Atmorans, can you guys talk about if you can reveal it at all or not? Were there any other races on the land at the time?
While I can't say how many races you will be able to encounter, there are a few tales that tell of elves in the west and in the south.
That's interesting. That was the last thing I was thinking you'd say something about giants or something.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Where are we going anywhere next for this stream, or is this where we're stopping for today?
I think this is actually where we're going to stop for today. This area is a bit.
View.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's lovely.
Well, it was a great little look, like a sneak peek into what this fantastic, mysterious province, that, if you can even call it province, that is Atmora. And I appreciate you being here with us, Hendris.
Sure thing.
So really cool from what we were able to see.
Yeah, you know, the designs especially are absolutely just mind-boggling.
You guys, it's good stuff.
All right, so I guess that's what we have for you guys in chat today for this walkabout. So thank you everyone for all of your support and for joining us on this journey across most of Tamriel. Thank you also for tuning in as well to this year's Creation ModCon 2021. We've all had a fantastic time here. I certainly have. What about you, Harry?
Oh, of course, Arger. You know, it was genuinely really awesome to see all of the project progress. A lot of this is new to even us because, you know, sometimes we get stuck in our own little trying to bring our projects to life. So it's a treat for us to see this progress as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And a final thanks as well to Skywind, Skyblivion, and to an extent Bethesda for Skywind and Skywind for being our partners, and for Bethesda for creating a fantastic world for us to play around in. It has been just a joy. As well as the Arcane University. Remember to go apply and listen to that delightful ad from Leftover Pet.
Yes,
we have
new
lots
channel
of
trailer. If you haven't seen it already, it's very. Someone in chat earlier said it has big mattress store energy.
Yes, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
On top of that, we're interested in hearing your thoughts on how this event has gone up to this point, especially for those of you who have stuck around for the entire thing. We'll be sending out a feedback form here in the chat soon. If you would be so kind as to fill it out and leave your thoughts, we will be happy to take your suggestions and try to incorporate them for future events.
Yes, feedback is definitely welcome. And wanted for this one. And I would like to also say that moving forward, keep one eye open on our Beyond Skyrim community Discord, as we will be posting quite often for the rest of this month for our annual Advent calendar. And we would like everybody to have a fantastic holiday season.
Yes, thank you to everyone so much for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been great. You've been absolutely fantastic chat.
Audience,
and,
yeah, for real.
Yeah, fantastic audience, and have a great one. See you next year.
Great. Have a great rest of your year, yeah.
Bye.
Creation ModCon 2021 signing off.